So, hey Maya, thanks so much for joining me today and doing your yearly update. This could become a thing. I don't know.
Oh yeah, every year.
Yeah, it's
That'd
just
be
so
fun.
nice. Because even last year, you helped us really with time management and you explained how you were writing all those books, um, managing a store, managing a family, managing a farm. I don't know how you do it all, but this past year you've done so much. I know some of your children's books have come out.
Hmm.
You're well into it. You told us you have two classes for your shaman work. You can tell
Yeah.
us more. There's got to be more. Oh, the art gallery with the art
Yeah, we've
shows.
done a lot in the last year.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't remember when we had the interview, had my vibrational healing book already come out? Or did it just come
I
out?
think it had just come out, but you can tell
Okay.
us about it if you want.
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember the timeline of things. So that's been doing really well. I've been doing meditation CDs, that part of a series. So I did the first two. I have to do the third in the series still. That's on the agenda for the next month or two. So sometime this fall. I had to wait until the kids went back to school. I don't get, during the summer, I don't get much work done because they come to work with me, which is wonderful. But definitely, cuts down on the writing, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
certainly not going to record any audio CDs while they're in the room because yeah, they don't ever stop making noise. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, no, it's been really good. Last March, I had the idea here at the store to. And I'm in the store, so that's why I keep looking around.
Yeah.
But I had the idea to put up a wall and make a larger classroom area. So, and my husband, he's amazing. He can build like anything. So he threw up the wall in like 2 days. And 4 days later, people came into the store that had been here the week before, and they're like, "Wait, what? Like, where
Mm.
did this new classroom come from?" It was all painted and everything within 3 days. So, but that classroom, the new classroom space has really been great. Like, now there's room for larger groups of people, and we had the idea to make it. I figured as long as it's a big empty space, who wants to just be staring at white walls? That's really boring. So I decided to make it an art gallery for local artists.
Mm-hmm.
And we do group shows, and which is nice because it gets a whole lot of new people in.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I make sure that everybody who comes in brings uplifting artwork. I try not to put anything scary or fear based in there.
Nice.
Nothing too spooky, because
Mm-hmm.
we do have to look at it while we're doing the classes. So
Right. Yeah. We're back with Maya. She had a customer. She's at a store. Awesome. We're watching
yep.
commerce happen. And so I think we were counting down all the things that you've done over the past year, and it's been so much. I don't think we mentioned the children's books that you did. Do you want to tell us about that? Because that's such a cool thing.
Yeah, I did two so far. I still have a bunch planned. That I'll just do every once in a while whenever I have free time, all that free time that I have. But the first two that I did, they basically started. They're geared for girls, little girls, but little boys can read them too because I made sure that the color schemes and stuff are not pink and purple, and they're it's gender neutral colors, gender neutral story really, but the main characters are girls.
Mm-hmm.
And I came up with the series. The series is called The Girls Who Could, and they're all picture style books where you have like four lines on one page, and then next to it a picture, and there's 16 stanzas in each book, and each book is centered on like a famous person, a famous woman who's already accomplished something amazing. So, and to begin with, most of the books, like I do eventually want to get to people like Maya Angelou and great artists and writers, but to begin with, I'm focusing mostly on science and math people.
Mm-hmm.
And it sort of all came about because I went on to Amazon to buy my daughter, my 3-year-old at the time, to buy her a book, like just a fun fiction book about science or math, because she's really into that kind of stuff. Like her mind really works that way. And she's also artistic, but it's easy to encourage the art part. It's the science and math that tends to get sort of pushed down, especially in girls.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to have some fun books about that. And I went on and looked, and I was surprised because they actually don't even really have any fun books about that for boys either.
Huh.
But there's only one that's geared for girls. It's called Rosie Revere Engineer, and it's very cute. And and then there's one about a boy called The Boy Who Loves Math, and it's about a famous mathematician, Paul Erdu. But that one's very intense to read. It's very complicated, and it's a bit much for children. I think it was written by a mathematician probably as well. So I did get those two books for her, but I was disappointed because I really wanted, something she could connect to. So I figured, well, if it's not out there, I guess I have to write it myself. And that's sort of how I wrote. I have a couple of books like that for grown-ups, too, that I wrote that way. Like my book on grounding and clearing.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote that 10 years ago because for my old store, I was trying to buy a book on grounding or clearing. And because, everybody coming into the New Age store was not grounded or clear.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's mentioned in books, but it's never really a big focus.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody knows they should ground, but they don't really know how. Or they just know like one technique of putting their roots down into the ground or something. So then when I went to the biggest New Age book distributor in the country, I found that nobody had written one.
Mm.
So I was like, well, no wonder everybody's ungrounded. So I went out, so I figured I might as well write one myself. And so that's kind of what happened with the girls' books too. And the idea with the girls' books is to give. I'm focusing on real women but I make the story sound like it's a fiction story, and I write them as if it's the little girl doing all the great things,
Oh, cool.
so that it's more interesting and the children can connect to it. And I wanted to give kids, especially little girls, sort of a template because if you see that somebody has already done something, it's easier to do it.
Mm-hmm.
If you hear an inspirational story about someone, it's easier to follow through on your own inspiration. So I figured if they're real people, it's has a better chance of really sinking in that yes, you're a girl, and yes, you can do something awesome. So the first book was about a computer programmer, Grace Hopper, who was in the Navy, and she wrote the first computer language. And she's like the mother of all computers, basically. Like we wouldn't have what we're talking on right now if it wasn't for her.
Mm-hmm.
Because the male team just wasn't quite getting there. And she ended up leading the team at Harvard and with the naval group. So and this was on those big old computers where that take up a whole wall. Those big giant
the ones that was hard
drawing old computers. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then the second book I did on Mae Jemison, who's the first Black astronaut in space, but she's also, which is really secondary to the thing that she's also was a dancer with Alvin Ailey and an artist, and she's a major scientist and doctor, and like a medical doctor and a research doctor. So she does all these things, and she thinks that they're all equally important, that you need to integrate art and science together in schools. So that's her main focus right now, now that she's done with, being an astronaut, being awesome. She's still awesome, just not traveling into outer space anymore. So those were the first two. I've got sort of my list of famous women that I want to do stuff with. They have to be famous and fun. Like there has to be something, at least something interesting that could hook a girl in.
Yeah.
In the story, because otherwise the story is just not that interesting.
And for you to write as well, it has to be interesting for you to research and write and imagine the little girl being her.
Yeah. The one with Grace Hopper is really fun because it's like there's stories of her where she used to she was so into how things work that when she was like 9 years old, 8 or 9 years old, she took apart every alarm clock in the house, like 8 alarm clocks, because she wanted to see how they work.
Mm-hmm.
So nobody could wake up. Everyone was like, "Where's my alarm clock?" And she had taken them all apart in pieces. And so that was something really funny to put into the story,
Yeah.
And then there was, and she also was the first person who debugged a computer
Mm.
because they used to say that things had bugs, like that machinery had bugs if it wasn't working properly, but they hadn't really applied that to the idea of a computer not working properly.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was a term like back in the 50s, and nobody ever said debugged. And then one day, one of the giant Mach 2 or Mach 3 computer wasn't working, and she went in and she found an actual moth. And
Ah.
yeah, she found an actual moth, and so she's like, "Look, I found it!" And then the computer started working. It was like a dead moth in the wiring, and to this day, apparently, it's still up on a bulletin. Like she stuck it on a piece of paper, saying
Mm-hmm.
the first computer that was ever debugged, and taped it to the paper. And apparently, that piece of paper is still up on a bulletin board at Harvard. I think Harvard, maybe MIT, one of the schools, and it's still up on the bulletin board, like the first debugged computer.
That's awesome.
So yeah, so stuff like that like makes the story, cute, and funny, and you can draw funny little pictures,
Yeah.
and so
And I
yeah.
remember where we were before. So I was mentioning that. So you had, you turned half your store into a classroom, and
Mm-hmm.
then you just happened to notice that the walls were bare, and
Right.
that it would be great for an art gallery. And that's just not something that everyone would think of. And I just want to acknowledge you for how innovative your mind is,
Thank
because
you.
and it's been a great success. I saw stories in the paper about the artists that you have, and you have them, regular turnover of the art shows, and it's so great to have that community space.
Yeah, I like being able to help the community, and it was also interesting because after I had the idea, it occurred to me that it would also be a nice a new avenue of marketing,
Mm-hmm.
as well, because there's a lot of places where you can't put up flyers for paid events like classes,
Mm-hmm.
but they're very happy to put up an artistic event, where it's a community, it's free, there's wine, there's cheese, and then you get all the friends of the artists who maybe wouldn't normally notice the store or even know it's here, but then
Mm-hmm.
they come in. So it's nice that way too, that it sort of spreads it's a nice marketing avenue. And then the artists get seen, and that's
Mm-hmm.
fun. I mean, I like doing artwork, so for me it's fun, to see all the new art,
Yeah.
help out. I like getting an established artist, but I also really like always having. I like to at least every 2 shows have somebody who's really new.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe has no idea what they're doing, like maybe for their first show and stuff, because it's a good feeling to give that opportunity to someone.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of I have the contest that I run for short story writers,
Mm-hmm.
where we put together, and my friend and I do that, where we have this huge contest every year online, and people write short stories, and we have like real judges from Random House and Penguin that look over the stories and decide which are the best ones, and then we put it in an anthology every year. And it's just a fun little hobby. Sometimes it's a lot of work, but for the most part, it's just something fun.
Mm-hmm.
And but the amazing thing is over the years, we've been doing it for 11 years now, and now we're getting really known apparently, and I keep getting emails from people saying, "Oh my god, this is the most prestigious contest. I can't believe you chose me. I was just about to stop and give up writing. I had lost all hope, and
Oh.
then you guys chose my story. And now 2 years later, I'm a published author with a book contract with a big publishing house." And it's like, and if we hadn't published them, they would have stopped writing, and nobody
Yeah.
would have ever heard the stories that they're writing now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just really cool.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that goes to show, consistency really matters. Keeping it up. You've been doing this for a long time. Pretty much everything that you do. But I feel like this past year, your ideas have gotten bigger, and you've had bigger healers come into the store from faraway lands, and your apprenticeship is a big program that you're doing now, and I know you've had two classes of it that are still going on. Um,
Yeah.
so what do you think that shift was? And I feel like it started with the vibrational healing book. I don't know why, but
Yeah, I think you're right. There was a lot of writing. That book was really different from the other books I'd written before. It was, I mean, it's twice as long as most of the other books I had written before, and but it's not just the size of it. I mean, it just had so much information in it that I think just researching all that information probably boosted me up a bit. And yeah, there was definitely some sort of a shift around that time. I don't know if it was the writing of the book or if the shift happened and that's what made the book come out.
Yeah.
But it's and that was also right around the time when I was starting the store, and so I think it was really good to get back out. I mean, it was nice working just from home, but I'm very introverted, so I think it's probably necessary for me to have something that forces me out of the house, because otherwise I'd be very happy to just sit and never leave. I mean, I could stay in the house for like a month and
yeah, like me.
Anywhere.
Yeah.
Order groceries through Peapod or something, and never leave. So it's good. It's good for me to get out, but because I am an introvert, but I'm a social introvert. I really like to talk to people. So, I need to recharge on my own. But being around people is important. So when I didn't have the store for 4 years, in between the two stores, it was kind of, it started, I think it was a little too low energy. I needed to be around different people. More. So, I mean, that time was important too, because I had my daughter she's my second child, and she definitely I think she needed that extra closeness, extra attention of just having mommy all to herself. But,
Cool. So, because of that, like, has your confidence changed or your mindset changed? Do you feel any different than you did last year?
I do, yeah, because I was more. I think I got over some of I had more shyness before, and I've definitely worked through a few of those issues. I was teaching classes for the last 10 or, I don't know, 10, 12 years. I've been teaching classes, but some of them were, I don't know, there was something about the shamanic class that I knew it was a much bigger deal than the other little classes I was teaching. Even though it's not necessarily more people. I mean, I've taught classes with like 15, 20 people in them, but, or even like 30 people, but but there's something about the shamanic class, like it was, I knew I had to be really serious. I had to really know what I was doing. This wasn't like, this was a big commitment for the people to commit to that class, financially and time-wise and spiritually and all of it, So, a lot different. It's a lot different than just taking a little, 1 hour meditation class or something. So, so that really brought me out of my shell a bit, I mean, even putting it out there was kind of scary, because I was like, is anybody going to sign up? I mean, a month before the class, I only had one person signed up, and I didn't know if it was even going to go forward. I was like, great, so I'm going to have a class for a whole year with one person. Yay! And then I had 4 more people sign up. So, and then my other class, and then I started a second round of the class, and that one had 6 people in it. So, and I like, it's just about the perfect size. Like, I want it, I think between 5 or 4 people up to 8, and that's the maximum I would want in that class. Because it needs to be a close, small group to work through a lot of personal stuff.
Yeah.
So, you don't I think nobody wants to be sobbing in front of 20 or 30 people.
Yeah.
Not that anybody usually sobs, but you want to feel like you could if you had to,
Yeah. All right. So we've got the big picture of what you've done over the last year and how you're feeling more confident. And um, has your revenue gone up with all these new things? Like, is that part of the business flowing as well as these big projects?
Yeah, the revenue has gone up. I actually have, I'm kind of dorky, so I have things in spreadsheets, and I have, I mean, the book revenue's definitely gone up every month. I'm probably making about 50% more a month on average from the
Nice.
books than I was a year ago. Um, I don't really monitor that carefully, so I'm not sure exactly, but at least 50% more, maybe 100% more. And that's nice because I don't pay that much attention to it because it's passive income, and I'm just kind of like, oh yeah, nice, payments are coming in.
Yeah.
And for a while, I was checking it like every month, and I was just like, wow, people are buying the books, and now I'm just like, whatever. Like, I don't even really look. But I kind of forgot to look at the royalties for about 3 months over the summer, I think. I just checked in like a month ago, but with the store, I have everything in a spreadsheet. And one of the things that I started doing, because they have this thing on the register where every month you can print out how much, like this, it tallies up all this stuff and it shows you how much people bought in each category and how much they spent in cash and credit cards. Some businesses, I guess, do those tallies every day, but I just do them once a month. And so, but what was interesting is it also tells you how many customers you had that month. And so what I started, I've always kept that record and entered it in every month on my spreadsheet, but I never used to add in how many people.
Uh-huh.
But this year, and I went back to last year's too to add it all up. I added in a couple new columns that show like how many people, how much the average transaction is.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is the amount of people coming in has gone up, but also the amount that they spend per transaction has gone up. So it started off when I started the store at like, I don't know, maybe like I think it was like $16 average transaction, and and then now we've got twice as many customers, and they're spending like $32 average transaction.
Nice.
So and that's the average. So that's between like the people who come in with a kid and just buy a lollipop, and then like the people who are buying large crystals for $100 or a couple $100 bucks. So it's cool to see that it's growing in both ways,
Mm-hmm.
So that's been nice to see. It's another way to track it. It's an interesting,
Yeah, that's really great.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, the themes for you are like consistency and just doing what interests you, and that's how you get a lot done. Being bolder in what you're offering, and um, for other people watching, can you like what's a good piece of advice to give to someone who's kind of waiting to get started?
My main thing, the main like sort of thread that goes commonly through my adult life, probably also childhood, but definitely through my adult working life, is that if I have an idea about anything that I want to do, and it sparks some excitement in me, I go out and I do it like immediately. I don't wait usually. I mean, right now I've got several creative projects that are sort of on the back burner, but I'm thinking about them. But working through them because right now I just have too many projects in my head. But generally I'll start it right away, and just do it. And I guess that's kind of have like that fiery personality, where I've got all that energy. So sometimes I might do it too quickly,
Uh-huh.
but I don't always pay enough attention to the details. But I think the main key is to just get it done. Start the process and do as much of it as you can. because you don't know what's gonna. I mean, you don't know what's gonna work and what's not gonna work.
Yeah.
So, and my theory is that your soul is sending you guidance. And part of that guidance is that if you're excited about something, that's something you should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if you're not excited about it, then you shouldn't be doing it. And it's pretty simple.
Yeah.
But that's a rule that I've pretty much followed since I was in my early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, even earlier. My college education that's how I based that too. I went to, I majored in Russian literature. Certainly wasn't a business move.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There are practical uses for Russian literature, but I learned Russian, and I figured it's, just as useful as an English major. Mm-hmm. But it's not. It definitely wasn't like business or, some of the more marketable, it wasn't chemical engineering or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what I was obsessed with at the time. I had a real passion for it. So, and if I hadn't done that work, I wouldn't have the confidence that I have as a writer. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't have the ability to just crank out writing really easily. That's all I did for like 6 years. Mm-hmm. My last 2 years at high school and all through college, all I did was writing classes. And they were like intense writing classes. So, now it's like, if I want to write something, it's easy. But that's because I followed my passion. So.
I also want to say that you do have a lot of energy. You have probably more energy than almost anyone I know, which is really awesome because you have kids too.
My grandmother.
Yeah, right? I've never met her. But when you follow your passion and you do the things that excite you, it feeds you and gives you more energy. So I just want to point that out for people listening who maybe don't have a lot of energy. Just start doing the things that excite you, and that gives you energy. Like, it's 9 o'clock in the morning, and I'm excited right now, and that's like, I'm not even normally up right now. So yeah, talking to you definitely gives me energy.
Yeah, it's important to do that. And, I think that's part of why they always say if you're really sick, anyone who's sick or depressed or under the weather, but especially if you have like a terminal disease, they always say you should, if you have cancer, you should be watching movies that make you laugh all the time. And you hear stories on the internet about people who say that they literally cured themselves just watching funny movies. Mm-hmm. And laughing. Because laughing changes your body chemistry.
Yeah.
And smiling changes your body chemistry. When you smile, you release endorphins in your head. Mm-hmm. Those endorphins aren't there because you're happy. They're there because of physical reaction from your smiling. So, so if somebody doesn't have energy, then they need to watch funny movies or, certainly need, or it could even be action movies if that gets them excited. But they should stay away from the fear-based entertainment.
For sure.
And try to watch this. Every once in a while, we'll get a really serious sort of fear-based movie, but I try to stay away from it as much as possible, Mm-hmm. Unless it's something that won an Oscar and I feel like I have to watch it.
Yeah. So. That's great, Maya. Well, do you have any other advice for people? I know you probably have tons, but...
No, I think that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Follow your excitement.
Yeah, that's the main one. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for taking the time to do this. And I just can't help but mention the painting behind you. It looks like Arizona a lot.
Yeah, that's an old painting of Borobudur in the Philippines.
Cool.
Or not Philippines, sorry, in Indonesia. It's the largest Buddhist temple.
Oh.
Yeah. And inside each one of those little stupas, they call them stupas, is a Buddha. And there's hundreds of them all over this temple.
Very cool.
So, and here comes my daughter, because they have early dismissal today from school.
Cool. All right. Well, I'll let you go. Have fun with your family, and thank you so much again.
All right. Oh, there she is.
Hi, Jocelyn. Hi.